So now the word is with the assistants, and everybody wants, there is someone who wants to. Can you speak loudly, or please? Or
I'll try to do my best. Well, I would like to make some brief notes about some comments and some topics that have been discussed here. I will start by saying that I did a presentation yesterday. My name is Cristina Lopes. I'm a painter, and I also did a degree in archaeology. And since 2015, I'm living in Aberdeen, and it is a great pleasure to be here and sharing, as I did, a small sample, I would say, of my paintings, most related with landscape, but also with portraits and some diverse approach of the painting. And I'm talking about this because we've been some pointed different issues about, for instance, Professor Timiko about education as a living alive, and as the issue of shelter. I would like to say that my practice, my way of making, is also a way of contributing to society, and there is a very interesting way of saying, like in English we say, I take shelter in doing this. And for instance, the shelter is not just a basic need, it also could be, obviously, first of all, we start by responding to our basic needs, which is food and a place to live and so on and so on. But besides that level, in different dimensions, we also take shelter, and our needs may fulfill what is to be in society, how we relate it with each other, how we produce education, and how we interact in doing what we do in our practice, how we help to build a society. And I find this very interesting. Furthermore, I would like also to point the word difference, which is been said before, as a point of attention, as a focus where we may relate in a position of be aware of the others. For instance, I would going to be more pragmatic in the sense that I'm Portuguese. Most of my life I live in Portugal, and since I've been in Scotland, that experience is so dramatically different that it gives me a very, very open mind. And that difference from all the things that was my background, all the things that I knew, and like the environment, the light, the colors of the city, the culture of the north of Europe is very different from the south, and so on. All of these, all those differences, it's a level where we can perceive and understand what makes us human, and where we can find bridges of understanding and connect it and find a way to interact in society. Thank you.
I'm Well, it's nice to see the connection between Porto and Aberdeen going from strength to strength. Greetings from Aberdeen. And of course, I agree with you, but on the particular issue of difference, I think there is an issue here which I would like to raise. And the question in my mind, it might sound odd, is which comes first, difference or alterity? Anthropologists very often like to speak about radical alterity, about the experience of coming up, finding yourself amidst people whose lives are so very, very different from your own, and you're trying to begin to make sense of them. And they get the notion of radical alterity. Alterity is the word otherness. They get this from the philosophy of Emmanuel Levinas. And what Levinas argued was that in the encounter with another person, we should start from the premise that that person is present in themselves and not in any way encompassed by us. So that we have not, in starting to have a conversation with another, we should not start by already bringing that other person in within some categorical framework of our own, which positions him or her as of this kind or of that type or whatever. They are just there, as they are, and we have to start from there. And that's the position that many anthropologists would take, that we should not, we should start by not having any kind of precondition or prejudice about what the other is like, and then perhaps begin to find some common understanding. But the trouble with that, due to my mind, is that it fragments the world. And I think there's a difference between, it's splitting hairs, I know, but it's a difference between difference and diversity. And when you speak about diversity, it's as though you imagine a world that is already cut up, like biologists talk about biodiversity. I mean, there are all these different species. So the world is already cut up into different kinds, and then the problem is to relate between them. Differentiation means that difference is always becoming, it's always evolving. It's more like in mathematics, the differentiation of the calculus, where there's a tangent, there's a gradient, a curve, that is beginning to split off. And I have become very much of the view that we should start from differentiation rather than from alterity, rather than saying there's me and the other, there's a complete gulf between us, and now we have to start to find. We should actually think that through the very process of our interaction, we are becoming who we are in relation to other people. So the difference becomes itself relational. And I'm most bothered when anthropologists take over this notion of radical alterity and talk about it as radical cultural alterity. Because as soon as this word culture comes in, the anthropologist is already saying there's people of my culture and there's people of this other culture. That has already put the other into a frame of cultural diversity, which is actually one that we are imposing. So anyway, this is an issue, right? But I think it's very easy to talk about difference, but there are different kinds of difference, and we need to be precise about them.
Well, Professor Ringgold, I would love to ask you something. I used to find shelter looking at the stars, and I read recently one of your marvelous texts called "Reach for the Stars," and
And yesterday, when I was presenting my own paper, I quoted you. And this quoting, I've been thinking about it, and I would like to hear you about your own expression, because you said every perception of the world, in short, is part and parcel of the world's perceiving itself. So I talked about John Wheeler's participatory anthropic principle, in which the universe is a phenomenon which observes itself. And I was speaking about circularities, but this particular phrase just struck me, and I would like you to say something about it. Can you?
It really comes from the philosophy of Merleau-Ponty, where in Merleau-Ponty uses the word coiling over, so that when I'm looking at, to take that particular paper that you mentioned, and I was talking about what happens when we look at the gaze at the stars in the night sky, and we say we see little points of light, and the argument that Merleau-Ponty would put forward is that we are looking at the stars with eyes that already know starlight, so that the stars that we are looking at are not just on the far side of perception, they're out there, they're also inside our own eyes looking out, and that's what he means by the coiling over, the way in which the world actually invades our own consciousness to the extent that that affects the way our consciousness bears upon the world, and so that there is a circle. And there's a lovely bit in Shakespeare, in Romeo and Juliet, where Romeo is underneath Juliet's balcony, and he's starstruck, and he says, and he imagines, what if, I can't remember the exact words, but he says, imagine two of the fairest stars in all the heavens imagining some business, did enter her head and entreat her eyes to take their place. What if her eyes were there, they in her head? It's lovely. So he imagines Juliet, he imagines these two stars exchanging places with the eyes. And it's exactly that when you're looking at a star, the experience is not that, as the astronomers would say, that you're looking at this celestial object that's billions of light years away. Your experience is of a pinprick of light which shines. And when you think, what is shining? It's not an objective property of a combustible material. It is an experience of illumination. So somehow or other, the light, in order to see with the light, in order to see things, to see light, you have to see with the light, and the light has to enter your head, and you get this coiling over effect, in which the stars are both inside your head, and you are out there in the universe at one and the same time. And that's it's a phenomenological thing rather than a physical one.
I want to speak about, sorry about that.
Talvez ficar aqui, não.
No.
Eu não estou um pouco.
I'll try to say this now. I'm a very lucky person, and I've been in Manchester Metropolitan Doctor University in my PhD for some years. No?
Yes.
Okay. So, I've done a study in Manchester Metropolitan with Dr. Roberts. She was my tutor. I was very lucky because I gave her some headaches sometimes. Well, for 4 years, I was thinking how I could have about materials, and I was very worried that we would lose objects. And I'm very happy to see that you're thinking that you're writing about surfaces. I'm very eager to see your work. We talked about your work a lot of times, and I quoted your work a lot of times. And there was this time when I was writing. I was on the computer and I was writing, and there was a tree outside, and I was reading about lines in your work. And there was this moment where my son was a baby then, and the soup was being almost ready, and I was, a single parent, and I was doing the PhD, and I was traveling from England to Lisbon, and this is quite a lovely thing. It's not bad, it's a very good thing. But all these things interconnected. And I was thinking, well, how can all these things become so connected, and I have to put these objects aside, just think of them just as things. Well, just as things is not, but I'm not saying this in a bad way, it's just that how can I was thinking about photography then, as I was saying, how can I say to these people that I've been talking to, that have their photographs in their albums and hidden in the drawers, how can I then go to them and say that object, which is a word that we use so often, that there isn't really space for that word anymore. So I started to go deeper into this matter, into art, and connecting it, trying to connect it with relational theories and with flux of materials and all that. And I came to think of an idea, which I'm trying to take it further now, which is objects as temporary surfaces of things. And I'm trying to explore this now. But I guess that idea of shelter and the idea of difference has a lot to do with this. And I would love to hear you say something about the object and about the materials as something that has got life to itself. Well, my making is through writing, and I believe that if you consider the materiality of words, also things become disclosed, things become alive. So maybe it's because it can be said through words. I don't know, am I making sense?
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying a lot of things because I have so many things to know.
Yes, if you go back to people showing their photographs in their photograph albums, then these photographs for the people are usually stories, and that's why they mean something for them. Every photograph tells a story about somebody or some place or some visit or something. So they'll tell, and so the story then kind of comes up out of the photograph, and that's what really counts. A colleague of mine, who I might mention because it actually connects with what we were talking about earlier, Alf Warnborg, who's a very prominent human ecologist working in Lund in Sweden, is firmly of the view that we can talk about stuff, we can talk about the world in two ways. We can talk about it semiotically in terms of meanings, or we can talk about it in terms of its materials and energies and so on. So that there's to all ecological relations, there's a semiotic dimension, and there's a dimension of material circulation and energy flows. And Alf's argument is that in many of the critiques of the nature-society dichotomy and so on, the semiotic dimension has been privileged, and we have ignored the dimension of material circulations and energy flows. And because of that, we miss the essential dynamic of capitalism, which does depend upon particular circulations of materials and energies. His argument, I want to raise it because it actually touches on something we were talking about before coffee. His argument is that the thing about the kind of world we live in today is that whilst our lived experience, the things, the field of meaning we inhabit is still relatively constrained, if you think of all the materials and energies that constitute human bodies, these are now part of a global commodity network. And when you buy your food, it's coming from all over the world, and that's becoming part of your body. So that somehow the semiotic realm and the material realm have got detached from one another. And he's argued, critical of me, that therefore you can't say that the person and the organism is one and the same. Because the person, constituted within a meaningful world of social relations, is fairly narrowly constrived. The organism, thought of purely materially, is part of this global network. Now, I actually disagree with him on that, but the basis of my disagreement is on whether we can or cannot distinguish the semiotic domain from the material one. And it bears on your question, because Alf, who I greatly respect, we argue about this all the time, but Alf says, of course there are objects. He says, the machine is an object. It's there. It confronts you, it constrains you, it does things to you. It has its own existence there, quite independently of you. Therefore, it is an object. And as distinct from meanings that we impose on things. And it comes down to a question about whether or not, it actually comes down to a question whether or not there can be such a thing as a direct perception of the world, or whether all perception is mediated by science. And there's a very strong bias in anthropology towards the latter position. To take the view that in anthropology we are interested in the meanings of things, and if we're interested in meanings, it means we're interested in science. And they refer back to the philosophy of Charles Sanders Peirce, that they say the sign doesn't have to be a symbol. So, for example, Peirce's classic analogy is that smoke is a sign of fire. So you don't see the fire, but you see the smoke, and infer from the smoke that the fire is there. And I say, how can you tell where the fire ends and the smoke begins? How can you say that the smoke is a sign of fire without actually making a cut between what you cannot perceive directly, namely the fire, and what you can perceive directly, namely the smoke? Because fire is a process of combustion of which smoke is a part. And so if you think of the world as a process and not as a series of central things, and if you think of our perception as part of the way in which we become involved in that process, then it seems to be that direct perception is possible, and therefore that it is not possible to separate out meanings and materials. But it's a really big area of debate around this, and it gets down to really quite fundamental philosophical questions.
I have a question about this matter. It's the question of community. How can we think a global community? Because everyone tells us that we need to think globally. But that's a problem. That's a real problem. And you see it in the conferences about climate change, which are, in a certain way, a political failure because there's no political representation of a community that unites very different interests when it comes to climate change. And in the other way, as you said, there are new actors, material actors, chemical actors, as CO2, carbon. And I remember once I presented a conference about climate change, and someone from the public told me, astonished, but you are talking about parts per million. Climate change is represented mathematically by a change of some 20, 30, 50 elements in millions. This remembers me of Bruno Latour, as you know. He talks about the constitution, a differentiation that divides non-humans from humans, and that constitution is abolished in practice. And we are living in a new, we are needing to reinvent community, global community. How do you grasp this matter?
I don't know, but the only way I've been able to grasp it is to think of community not as a closed, bounded entity, but as a field of difference, which itself is not bounded. And I got that from Roberto Esposito,
Yes.
who's very good about this, and points out that comunas means giving together, not
Yes.
giving together. And you can only give things to one another if you're different. And if you're all the same, you have nothing to give. So we have things to give to one another because we are different and can contribute something to the conversation that is going on. And then if you think of a community then as not as this bounded group, but as a field of difference, then it is possible to say that we all inhabit one world, even though that world is one of unlimited difference. This is something I feel really, because I think politically that is necessary, and I get annoyed. I get annoyed with anthropologists who keep using words in the plural.
Yes.
And saying, I'm living in my world, you're living in your world. You know, here in Porto, they're in one cultural world, they're in Aberdeen, they're in another cultural world. Everybody's in these different worlds. And then the problem is, how on earth do you establish any kind of conversation, bridge, head between them? And I think that's not only wrong in principle, I think it's wrong politically and ethically. I think we have to start from the premise that we all inhabit one world, and then the challenge is to specify exactly what the constitution of that one world is, because it certainly isn't the one world of British Airways,
Yes.
or telecommunications, or corporate one world, or the World Bank. It's another kind of world, and we have to try and, it's a challenge to try and express
Yes.
what is the coherence, wherein lies the oneness of that world when we're all different. That's all.
Can I throw a question around the other way?
Yes.
Which is, it's not the oneness, because that's what everyone is talking about, but then how do you conceive of locality? What is locality then? Because you've talked about globality, yes, and there is some sort of a oneness. I completely agree with you, and I completely am on your side with respect to the whole idea of compartmentalization and fragmentation. I mean, my whole work has been against this in a way. But then what constitutes localities? Or are we into what everyone is also then decrying? These very same people who you criticize are decrying the fact that the world is becoming monolithic, that it is a single with us, that's not quite the case. We're still trying to defend difference, as you said, a different kind of difference, but then what constitutes locality then?
I would argue that if we're talking about place, the short answer is movement. The places are constituted by people moving towards, away from, and around them. And therefore, again, the place is not, like the community, the place is not a bounded entity, so you're either inside or outside it. It is a particular moment. It's also changing all the time because places have histories. Every time you come back to a place, it's a bit different from what it was before. So a place is a kind of knot, a vortex in all these movements, out of which the world is continually constituting itself. You do have to be terribly careful with the vocabulary. I mean, I think it came up earlier. It was something that maybe something you said reminded me of these discussions about space and place, and in German Raum, and in the Scandinavian languages Rum. And Kenneth Olwick, who's a historical geographer, has written a lot about landscape, has explored the way in which in the history of geography the German Raum was translated as space and place, and how that then actually led in a rather perverse direction to the notion of Lebensraum, which duplicitously combined a kind of universalism of space with the boundedness and self-containedness of place, and that was the basis for the Nazi ideology of the time, because of the way that this notion of power has these double connotations, and that happens as soon as one begins to see place as bounded in upon itself, rather than something that is constituted in movement. But it just shows how careful we have to be with these words.
Well, I wrote a book which is called Circulation and Locality. So,
can I just remember the assembly and colleagues in the table of an experience of dialogue you had with our friend Philippe Descola. This book called Et au monde, quelle expérience pour nous. This book was precious for me because it is a very good book, short book, but dense book, to understand the differences, the complete differences, assumed differences between you and Descola. And it was very useful for me. And this should be the academy every day. I mean, people don't be afraid to put their ideas in front of the others and not be angry with each other because simply they think differently. This is very illuminating for a student. I consider myself as a student, an old student, but of course you turn into or against the idea of Descola, and I am much more from your side and from your side than Descola's. And of course it's not because you are here or I am a friend of you. I also estimate very much Philippe Descola and I respect very much him. But